Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Paragon. So today I'd like to go over the healing Paragon of the new BARD, which will be coming out in Module 21. So this healing Paragon is called the Minstrel, and we have a variety of powers. However, when we look at our encounter powers, oddly enough, none of them can actually heal. So how does the Minstrel heal? Well, you're a bard and you have a lute, so you can go and play songs. And with these songs, you can heal your allies. There are a variety of different songs which you can play, and they will give various different buffs. From the sheltered Etude, where you'll place a heal on your target whenever they go below 50% HP, a nice little emergency thing which you don't have to worry about once cast. You can always cast it again to give them another big buff heal. Now how it differs from, let's say, the DPS Paragon is that, much like other healers, we have this bar here with 1,000 points, and for a bard it's called performance. For a cleric and a paladin it's named divinity, and for a warlock it's named soul weave. And with this bar, this performance, it allows us to cast these various songs at certain costs. You can see this sheltering Etude would cost 200. This rejuvenating carol would cost 100, meaning you can cast quite a number of those songs without depleting your bar fully. So let's take a look at the different powers at which this minstrel has and which ones you will be focusing on using to heal your allies. Well, as for your at-will powers, these three are just for dealing damage, and this one, much like the at-wills on Cleric, the Paladin and the Warlock, it has a standard heal of a 275 magnitude. However, you can adjust it by certain feats and features, and it has your standard Forte performance cost. So this is your single target spot heal. However, when you hold it down, you're able to channel it and keep casting it, much like you can on the Warlock. So then with our encounter powers, when we look over them, none of them are really going to actually heal. So what we're going to do is choose the ones that buff our heals. For example, this Flourish will give us an extra 50% potency on whatever encounter power or song we cast within the next 9 seconds. So Flourish can be pretty universal there to buff up these songs that you want to be casting to keep your allies healed. Then we have this Serenade. I don't find it too useful, but you'll be able to effectively make it so that your target will take increased amount of heals. It can be decent when you have a tank and you're struggling to keep them healed. Let's say they're taking heavy damage from the certain boss. You might want to drop this on your tank and they'll take additional healing of 50% based on all of your other heals done by your songs or your at-will. Then we have our delayed play, which I find pretty useful for having an emergency button to cast on, let's say, a tank or anybody. Let's say you're to store this Defender's Minute in your delayed play, you'll be able to cast it instantly, and that's a 2000 magnitude heal. So if somebody drops really low on hit points, you can immediately hit this encounter power and they'll get healed up nice and quickly. It works effectively like this. I go and cast the encounter power, then I go and I cast my song, I believe it's this one, and it will store that song, as you can see there within the encounter power. It's delayed play, Defender's Minute, and then when I go and hit that encounter power, it goes and casts that song immediately on me without me having to actually go through the song pressing those certain keys. And then finally we have our baseline, which will effectively allow us channel divinity kind of thing, and you'll channel that performance by playing your lute, and you can cast it up to, I believe it's 10 seconds there, and gaining up to 200 performance. If you cancel it earlier, you'll receive less performance, but you'll also reduce the cooldown on it. And that's the encounter powers. As for the daily powers, we only get one unique one, which is the Curtain Call. However, the drawback is it will cancel all of your song effects on nearby allies, and you will grant an added effect based on the song cancelled. So if you're cancelling your Blaze Flamengo, you'll gain 100 action points. If you stop your Rejuvenating Carol, you'll heal your targets for 800 magnitude. If you stop your warding carol, that be this one here, the cleanse for this bard, then you'll reduce the damage they take by 10%. And then if you stop your actual sheltering Etude, you can see then they'll gain a 800 magnitude shield. Then, of course, with the other ones, you have your Encore, which will effectively cast the previous song which you played. So this one's the Defenders. And then you have your Inspiration, which is your standard buff of reducing the damage they take and increasing your damage that your allies deal by 15%. And it will also gain a heal over time for 12 seconds of 200 magnitude, so it's not too much. As for the mechanics, we've already gone over them. The shift is your dodge and your roll, where you can shift like that, and when you have your loot out, you can roll like that. Then with our tab, that's simply going into this playing the lute or not, and holding it down is then out of combat. And then we have the gift of the song, where we have our performance gauge increased to 1000. And then we have our natural talents, where we gain an extra quick play slot. So these are our quick play slots. We have 2 of them, and you can simply go and put one of those songs by dragging it in there, or right clicking and sticking it in one of the quick play slots, and it enables you to cast that heal song without having to actually play out the notes as you were. If you look at these certain songs, you can see that you'd normally have to cast these notes, you'd have to play them on the thing, and then once you've played the correct combination, it will cast that song. So those quick play slots can be quite handy to just instantly cast the song rather than worrying about having to play it. However, getting a hang of actually playing these songs can be very beneficial, as we'll go into it a little bit later. Then of course we have the Magician's Forte, where we have the extra performance regen, and we have our critical chance and awareness. As for the actual songs, of course we still have the Blaze Flamengo, which is on both Paragons. We have the Rejuvenating Carol, which we are definitely more interested in on the Healing Paragon. It's a decent heal over time of 100, lasts 36 seconds, something you might want to just cast on your targets as a background heal, so you would have that cast, and then every second or so they'll receive that extra heal. Something you just want to have kind of up all the time. It only costs you 100 performance. Then we have our Defending's Minute, which I've already gone over. It's your emergency heal button to quickly heal a target. However, you won't be able to aim it. It will just instantly heal the nearby party member with the least hit points. Then we have our Warding Carol. This is like our cleanse. It affects everybody, lasts for 18 seconds, and it'll continually remove negative effects. Can be decent in some content. Then we have our Aurora Fantasia, where we'll be able to heal people when we hit targets. So when we have this cast, we'll be able to deal 25 extra magnitude on our hits, along with whenever we deal damage, we'll heal nearby allies for 50 magnitude. Not bad in my opinion, especially when you can hit multiple times per second with, let's say, like Reprise. However, the drawback is you have to be in combat to cast this, and if you leave combat, it'll be cancelled. The additional benefit on this is when you have it up, you can cancel it by going to cast a song by pressing your tab, and once you do so, it will immediately heal all nearby allies for 400 magnitude and also dealing that much damage to enemies. Then finally we have our Sheltered Etude, which is like that backup heal that you would have on your targets. If they drop below 50% HP, they'll immediately get healed for 600 magnitude. And if you go and cast this a second time when you currently have it up on targets, they'll just receive that 600 magnitude heal, and then the cooldown basically gets refreshed. As for these other 2 songs which are locked, that will depend on what feats you choose. If you chose this Gambler feat, you should be able to unlock these here. And these have some decent benefits, if not a bit gambly, as there is a chance that you obtain these. So I don't really see much of the appeal to get them. We can just see that one of them there is the Reprised Carol Enhance, and also the Reprised Carol Recover. So onto our class features. Initially here we have like the Soloist Song Ward. Again, I don't feel it has much use. And Mystifying Strikes, it seems to be pretty decent, as it's going to give us a heal magnitude of 400, whenever the next party member hits the target who has our mystifying strikes active. So using an at-will like Reprise in both AoE fights and in boss fights can be pretty useful, just to have this, I guess, random heal every now and again. Not sure how exactly useful it's going to be, but it seems pretty powerful. Going to have to go and test it out particularly and see how much heals we can rack up, let's say on a boss fight. Then we have this power here. I guess it could be pretty decent. Duration is 10 seconds and it's going to increase your healing by 5% and also your damage. Then we have this one, which will reduce the magnitude of our at-will heal down to 100. However, it will increase the performance cost up to 60. But it gives the ability to be able to cast it on all nearby allies that are within 40 feet. Then we have our Vamos Ala, where we'll effectively make our Blaze Flamengo now increase the running speed of all allies by 10%, and this effect will be increased to 20% when outside of combat. Then we go to our Play It Back, where our song, the Aurora Fantasia, will now have its maintained cost reduced by 10, and there will be a 20% chance that it will fire a second time when you activate its finale ability. And then finally we have our Starstruck, which could be pretty decent for healing people just kind of again randomly, but it will depend on their role. Whenever you heal somebody, there is a chance they will become Starstruck, and when they are Starstruck, whenever they do these certain effects, they will receive that heal. If a DPS deals critical damage, they'll get healed, and when a tank takes critical damage, they'll receive a heal, and when a healer does a critical heal, they'll receive a heal. And this duration is 10 seconds, but I'm not again sure what the magnitudes are on these heals, so again this is going to have to be something tested out. But just theory crafting, it seems pretty decent. So we move on to our feats. Our first set of feats here, I'm not actually quite sure which one to take. It can depend. If you just want a burst heal every now and again, 500 magnitude on your at-will can be pretty decent. However, you're going to have to wait 5 seconds before you can cast it again at 500 magnitude. Otherwise, for every 1 second you channel it, you'll decrease that magnitude by 50. Down to a minimum of 250. So it's not great to channel it when you have this feat, but when you have this feat, the Crescendo, it's better to channel it, but you'll have to channel it for 3 seconds to increase the magnitude by 50, and that'll only get it to a maximum of 425. Then we have our Art of War and the Rhapsody at Arms. I just find the Art of War is not much use whatsoever. It might be useful for, let's say, AoE fights. Dancing Light, it's okay, I guess. It's going to decrease the target's damage dealt by 5%, and if you're in mobs, it could be useful to have that effect on everybody and just help out dealing damage, I guess. So I've taken the bottom feat, giving that extra damage resistance there. So in our third set, we have Vamp, and then we have Sudden Muse. I find Vamp could be useful, but I feel Sudden Muse could be even better if you can time it right. Basically, every 3 seconds, when you're engaged in combat, there's a 10% chance to gain one of the effects. Where you have the Healer's Muse effect, you'll make it so that your magnitude on your healing songs, the Defender's Minute and the Sheltering Etude, are increased by 25%. You have your Warden's Muse, where the next time you play Rejuvenating Carol or Warding Carol, the duration is increased by 100%, and your Fighter's Muse effect, where the next time you play Blaze Flamengo or Aurora Fantasia, they will not cost any performance. It could be useful to have this within a fight and be able to cast the songs at the right times. However, I feel with a 10% chance every 3 seconds, that's not going to proc all too often. We'll have to see. Probably every 30 seconds you might get one of these, and then you're going to have to make sure that you're aware it's procced and then cast the corresponding spells and know that you can cast them with their buffed effect. So our fourth set of feats, we have our Desperate Finale and our Planissimo. Our Desperate Finale, whenever our performance drops below 200, will restore 600 performance immediately. However, it has a cooldown of 360 seconds, which is 6 minutes. Then our Planissimo, you'll effectively reduce the costs and magnitudes of many of the songs. It can be beneficial, but I feel just a bigger heal and less frequent is generally more helpful. Then our final two set of feats. We have our Storyteller and our Gambler. I feel the Storyteller is going to be a lot more reliable in just buffing the party, giving DPS 15% more damage, tanks 15% less damage taken, and healers increasing their outgoing healing by 15%. Of course, you will have to get all three stacks up by casting songs that are not from in your quick play slot. The also drawback is you're going to have those songs cast at least once every 15 seconds to stack them up that way. But once you have the effect up, you can mainly maintain it by casting a song within every 15 seconds. So I think that's going to be the best one to be taking. The Gambler will unlock 2 more songs here. As of how useful they are, I'm not quite sure. Going to have to test them out, as it is kind of a gamble as to what actually happens. Basically, with the Gambler feat, whenever you're in combat, when you play the Sheltering Etude, Defender's Minute, or the Rejuvenating Carol, and you don't use a quick play slot to do so, you'll gain a stack of Gambler's Delight. And with Gambler's Delight, you'll allow the execution of reprised carols. And with this effect, when it times out, so after 15 seconds, you'll heal all nearby allies for 100 heal magnitude. And whenever you use reprised carols, you'll apply one of the 3 buff groups, whose strength is based on the number of Gambler's Delight stacks you have. And the possible buffs will depend on the carol used. So let's say you're to use this carol, you have your certain buffs attached to this, whether it be generating action points along with a shield, and then you also have your enhance, which will make it so that decrease the recharge time of abilities, decrease incoming damage, and increase critical damage. As for why you would want to cast spells not in the quick play slot, the main reason is to gain these buffs. You would gain your extra 10% damage bonus, you would gain also your 10% extra critical severity, along with proccing, let's say, your Storyteller feat, because yeah, you'll have to gain those stacks only by playing it manually. To play it manually, you'll have to go into your tab, look at your corresponding buttons. Like this one here, we play it as 4, 1, 6, 2, 7, and that casts the spell as soon as you've finished the combination. Then you can go into your tab again and cast the other spells. You can also have them in your quick play slot and just cast them really quick. It can be fairly handy to do so, but you won't gain the extra benefits. So in the long run, you're best off learning off these combinations and being able to cast them really quick, and thus have those benefits from doing so. So when we go into a fight, we can just kill these mobs, and we can activate, let's say, this spell. Whenever we hit them, we'll receive a heal, and also when we go into our tab again, we'll receive a big heal and do big damage to everybody around. You can see that there. And when we go and cast our delayed play, we can give ourselves that big heal there, and so on and so forth. You want to be activating like this Rejuvenating Carol and just having it up all of the time. It's only, like, as you can see there, about 27k for my build with my stats. So anyway, that's going to be everything for this video and my introduction and overview of the Minstrel of the Bard. And hopefully it's somewhat insightful and you can see what it's going to be like. I just want to go and still test it out within, let's say, Tower of the Mount Mage or the Vault of Stars, and see how it compares to, let's say, the Paladin Healer or the Cleric. Consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.